We are definitely not on. Okay, I'm on now. Thomas, give me a 1, 2, 3, please.
1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1.
Awesome. Okay, so everybody, this is crashing the system. This is going to be maybe, I don't know, a couple hours of some crazy. This is solely to crash RegWatch. So if we go down, which how could we not? Because we seem to go down all the time. And sorry, and I've still got this old lower third up because I want to change that on the fly. But I have Thomas Kirsop here from Thomas. You're Alberta. What's your store again?
Alternatives and Options. We operate in central Alberta.
Great. And out there for everybody that has managed to tune in, again, I want you to know the whole point of today, besides us doing some bitching and screaming, is going to be me crashing this system. If we don't crash this live feed, then I can't fix things, man. Like I've totally made sure this is like got every possible reason to crash. So using an old project, we're throwing media in as we go, so we should crash, and chances are we won't. So Thomas, I'm gonna just run through all the camera shots here. And then I'm going to do that while you're talking just to make sure that we've got the audio. So I'm going to bring down the audio bed in the background here.
Okay.
Okay, so that should have done that. And then clear that layer. And so we should still be fine. So can I get you to fill us in a little bit about what you saw today coming out of, what is it, Middlesex, London? Is that what it is? Or
Middlesex, London Health Unit, yeah.
So what was that?
Well, they put out a post this morning that said they were going to have a press release at 2 p.m. Eastern with regards to Canada's first case of vaping-related pulmonary illness. So, of course, that got everybody pretty excited, and I spam the refresh button on their Facebook page from 2 o'clock until 2:10. And they came up with this press release. Now, I don't know how deep you want me to get into it, but highlighting it.
Get into it, buddy. Get into it.
The first 2 minutes were discussing a young person, and that was all the details we have, who apparently got very ill within the last 2 weeks within the Ontario healthcare system. They referenced that the young person did require ICU treatment and life support at one point. That was mentioned. And then after about 2 minutes, they kind of swapped over and went straight to e-cigs and vaping, where we discussed things like youth uptake, flavors, design devices. They really didn't talk anymore about this illness. They didn't describe what it was beyond vaping-related pulmonary illness. Was it lipoid pneumonia? Was it bronchiolitis obliterans? They didn't say anything. They didn't really get back to that focus until we got into the questions at the end. And my primary concern was that they had a question from the audience that asked if they had considered cannabis-based products based on the fact that what we're seeing in the U.S., a large number of those cases appear to be related to illicit black market cannabis products that have been stepped on by or cut with liquids that may be oil-based. The immediate answer from the health unit was, we're not going to comment on that, which caused me some concern. But not as much as what came next, because when they were pushed a little bit, Chris Mackey, Dr. Chris Mackey, the CEO of Middlesex London Health Unit, said not only did he know what the product was, and he knew whether the youth involved was using cannabis or not, he specifically said he wasn't going to talk about that. That gave me some very grave concerns from a public health standpoint. We did not identify the illness, which is kind of here nor there, right? Sometimes that takes time.
Sure.
But when you say you know what made somebody sick and you're not going to tell everybody else, exactly how does that serve public health? If it was a cannabis product, other people in Ontario who are using that product have no warning that this has happened. If it was not, people who are using a potentially contaminated e-cigarette product
Right.
have no warning. And federally, e-cigarettes and vaping technology are prohibited from adding lipoids and fatty substances to e-liquids. So either way, the public well-being was not served here. The man says, I know what made this kid sick. I'm just not going to tell you.
Yeah, that is quite disturbing, and I'm sorry. Obviously, there's huge news here for us today, and I shouldn't be trying to crash the system as we are covering it, but unfortunately, that is the plan here. So,
Well, there's always the replay.
That's exactly it. So look, so what you're just describing is exactly what we're seeing happening in the U.S. It's sickening to see Canada, who most of the time Canadians believe that the U.S. is the great Satan, but when it comes to mimicking terrible public health policy, and this isn't even public health policy, this is ideological rhetoric that they're following. This is the denial. This is the abrogation of their primary responsibility that a public health agency is supposed to have, is supposed to identify what's making people sick and then informing the public.
Yes. And what I saw today did not demonstrate that. And that's what gave me my primary concern is the idea that, if it was cannabis related, then we have the data. If you go into the U.S., several public health units have advised the public not to use black market sources.
Mm-hmm.
Leafly.com, which is a cannabis-based news source,
and a reliable one too, I might add. They've done a good job on this issue.
Yeah, they have. They had articles out 8 months ago talking about this new cutting agent, right? And then they had articles out that said, you know what, maybe there's some not so good things with this new cutting agent. And then their most recent articles were about how all the businesses that were selling this cutting agent aren't in business anymore. And
yeah, that's right. Yeah, they're all out of business now. Yeah, exactly. What we're going to do here, I'm just so people can see what I'm doing. And I've got this set, I believe, right now. So you're actually seeing our program feed out, correct, Thomas?
I'm actually looking at Skype. I haven't got Facebook open right now.
No, but with the Skype, you should be seeing our program feed out, right?
Yes, sir. I see the program feed.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Just if you can, just find a few more things to talk about what you saw today. And then I'm just going to fix this lower third right now and get that in while we're live on air. Again, I want to push the system here as much as possible.
Yeah.
Once we're done with that, what we're going to do is we're going to actually play this news event that happened. How long was it? Only
20, 25 minutes maybe.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll get it started, and we'll do a little stop and start and some news analysis. And you probably know better where to jump to get that moment where the official says that we know what this substance was, but we're not going to tell you. So was it at the end or?
Yeah, it was. Well, I know the question was asked at the 20-minute mark, and then it came up shortly thereafter. So
okay, perfect. So that's what we'll do. So let's just take another minute or two, just give this a little bit more background color or rant, if you would. and I
don't know if you can handle that language. I know you try to run a clean show.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's getting more and more difficult every single day to run a clean show. The things that I want to say are not clean.
All right. So let's talk a little bit then about the overall situation, right? Because some folks are really up on it, some aren't. Round about 2-3 months ago, we started seeing a rash of illness in the U.S. These were generally healthy people who should not have been ill otherwise, and it was initially attributed to vaping. When questions started being asked, it turned out that 80-some% of these people stated they were vaping THC products. 40% of the overall interviewed people who were sick said they were vaping both THC and nicotine products. 17% said they were only vaping nicotine products. Whether that 17% was motivated to be totally forthcoming or not is up to a lot of debate, because in a lot of states, cannabis is still illegal, and schools will kick kids out for using cannabis. They'll expel them for anywhere up to 180 days. So there's really a lot of concern as to whether those people are self-motivated to be forthcoming.
Right.
I haven't seen a lot of data as to whether they were tested afterwards or not to determine exactly what was in their system, and I don't expect to see that data. I always figured that eventually we would see similar illnesses in Canada. Our black markets are very similar. In some cases, it's the same source feeding both black markets. If something new comes up in a market in the States, it doesn't take long for it to come up in Canada and vice versa. So when we saw this increase in vitamin E acetate, trociferol acetate, I think is the proper name, but the spelling might be out.
Mm-hmm.
It would not be uncommon that if we have this in pods and cartridges in the States for cannabis product, that we would also have it in Canada. And therefore, it's only a matter of time if this is the source of the issue before we start to see it pop up in Canada. So we had our first case of vaping-related illness came up in Canada the last couple of weeks and actually just popped up on the news this morning. This is nothing new.
Right.
But it looks like we're going to have to go through the same thing again. In the U.S., for the first week or so, it was all about vaping, 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 and then you saw public health bodies start to come back and change their tone a bit, adjust their statements to focus more towards the black market.
Right.
As a corporation, I put out a response to all of my consumers and the people who run in my circle that in Canada, we're kind of blessed. We have access to a legitimate market for both cannabis and for e-cigarettes. And given that we have that access, it is in your best interest as a consumer, if you are going after either one of these products, to get them through your legitimate and legal means. There are controls in place in both distribution streams to track the product so that if there is a problem with it, if somebody does get sick, we can go back into that distribution stream and find out what happened in that process and maybe help get you better a little quicker. Whereas in the black market, guy in the trench coat says it's good to go and you make that choice.
So I've said from day one that this whole entire issue in the U.S. and then now, as it might be happening here in Canada, is really only should be considered a tainted product issue. I mean, a very simple tainted product issue, tainted, black market product issue. It should be nothing more than that.
Yes. Well, if it was inherent to e-cigarettes as e-cigarettes, vaping has been it's only been popular for the last 5-6 years in North America, right? It's growing in popularity, but it's been available in multiple countries on multiple continents and in use for 10 years or slightly longer. So if this was a problem with propylene glycol, if this was a problem with vegetable glycerin, if this was a problem with flavorings, we would have seen this coming up somewhere else, and you're not seeing that. You got 40 million users worldwide is the rough guesstimate as to how many vapors there are. We're seeing 450 cases of illness in a very tight geographical location, the United States, out of a worldwide vaping population. And within that location, we're seeing it in clusters in specific locales and states. This is not indicative of a problem with the device itself. Mm-hmm. This is very much indicative of something that has changed in the last 4 to 6 months. So right. Yes, contamination or new product.
So, and I think that it's pretty important to mention that a product tainted scare, something that goes on, so whether it's on purpose or it's by accident, something like that, I mean, it happens, and it happens frequently in a lot of products. I mean, we see that happen with lettuce, for instance, and lots of different kinds of products have these kinds of problems. And so really, in the end, there's nothing that even could say down the road mean that there couldn't be some kind of a manufacturing screw up that did actually end up being, say, a batch of PG was bad, for instance, and it made people sick. That's a tainted product. It's not on purpose. It might not be from negligence or anything like that. These things happen. And so what's going on here is that it has nothing to do with this product, has nothing to do with the ingredients in this product, and yet they're using it as a, purposefully as a tool to advance their ideological ends. And then, but the irony is that this could have easily been a problem with the product, and you would hope that regulators and health professionals would react properly. So
Well,
if this, well, if, for instance, if this was nicotine product, like, would they just be quiet for a while to let people die because they want to like make sure it's really bad? You know?
well, it certainly appears that way, because if we had tainted lettuce, as you brought up, you would see a recall come out on a specific brand or production line of lettuce, right? And we don't have that here. The public health unit in Middlesex, London, came out and said vaping related illness, and then gave us absolutely no information to focus on as to whether we should avoid a certain product or whether we should avoid a certain batch of something. It's just literally, no, stop vaping. Well, in that case, you've got people out there that just stopped smoking within the last month, within the last week, within the last 2 days. I've seen it here. I've got customers, I help them get off cigarettes. And because of the scare out of the United States, they've gone back to cigarettes.
Yep.
And that's horrible to see, not just from a business perspective, but from a personal perspective. I'm very proud of what I have done to help the people in my community. And when they go back to what London or the Royal College of Physicians is still calling a far better product, or when they go back to the far harmful product and drop the far better product, that hurts. It's a personal affront to me. It hurts.
Yeah, no, I mean, absolutely. This is one of the, I mean, if we lose, and I say we as in generally the people, human beings that believe in truth and science and good common sense, all of the things progressives don't believe in. They don't believe in truth. They don't believe in science. They don't believe in common sense. They believe in power. And don't believe the save the children thing either, because that's not what it's really about. Okay, so as I get that out of the way, one thing for everybody, please. We are always, and I will try to always keep these as short as possible, but please do go to support.regulatorwatch.com. Take a look at our little microsite there for supporting us, because we can't do this without viewer support. Industry has been fantastic, and they're going to continue to be supporting RegWatch, but we need to spread out this load. We need to be producing far more content than we are. And just so you know, and I do mention this, but let me hammer this home. RegWatch is accredited news, and Facebook allows us to boost our videos on Facebook. So I don't think there's anybody else out there that that can boost their vaping videos on Facebook. We can, and so your help helps us get this message and the news out beyond the bubble, which is what is really important. And Thomas, okay, and 1 second, my friend, let's clear that. There we go. All right, so let's see here if this will work. Again, so unbelievable. My system has not crashed.
When you try to do it on purpose, it never happens.
I'm trying to crash this thing on purpose, and it's just not happening. So, okay.
It's the same reason my kids behave in public.
Oh, that's a good one. All right, so let's see here. I should be able to play this in the audio. Now, I might create a massive echo. So we'll know this. You guys out there, please, I'm on watching you on Facebook right now. If a major bad echo happens, please do let me know. Oops. And sure enough, there we go.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming for today's announcement. My name is Dan Flaherty. I'm the Communications Manager here at the Middlesex London Health Unit. We're going to have statements from Dr. Christopher Mackey, who is the Medical Officer of Health and CEO of the Middlesex London Health Unit, as well as from Linda Stobo, who is the Manager of Chronic Disease and Tobacco Control here at the Health Unit. Our agenda for this afternoon, Dr. Mackey will speak, followed by Ms. Stobo, and then Dr. Mackey will conclude. There will be an opportunity for questions from the media at the conclusion of today's announcement, and we do ask that you please hold your questions and comments until the end of today's announcement. Dr. Mackey.
Thank you, Dan, and thank you all for coming today. Late last week, the Middlesex London Health Unit
Let's just stop there for a second. So he's identified it as e-cigarettes. Then I take it that's just as simple
Clearly.
as that. That's it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty much what they roll with for the next 15 minutes or so. Is it's all about e-cigs, and the reality is very shortly they're going to stop talking about the poor fellow that got sick or the person that got sick. I have to be careful; they haven't identified a gender.
Right.
But yeah, they spend a very short period of time talking about this actual incident, and then as we're about to see, they're going to go into a whole lot of time talking about e-cigarettes in general and multiple crossover issues
Right.
with e-cigarettes.
So we won't play all of that, but we will play some of it. But let's just state right off the fact that this is sophistry at its best. This is what progressives do. This is progressivism, guys. I mean, they clearly have a word they know the definition to, and they are corrupting it. Thomas is in his shop, and he's the only guy, so he's got to take care of business. And with sales down across the country and across the U.S. because of this issue, well, he's going to go and do that. And I'm just going to talk for a minute. We're going to play a little bit more of this. But let me just say this, is that across Canada, we know that just in the last, 30 to 45 days, we've seen, massive drop in sales across the country at vaping stores, full bore. And that means there's people who are vaping and then are not vaping. We know that. And in the States, the numbers are actually quite worse. So while we've been told, I just finished an interview today, and I've heard numbers of like 25% drop in the last 30 days across major chains, multiple stores. So there's no other explanation for it. And definitely that's part of this plan. Because, the thing is that the progressive war on tobacco is one where they are very depth at knowing on how to pinch sales. They know what they're doing. They're like the mafia. Really, this is really mafia action here. Regulators, now I'm not going to make these comments about a particular regulator because, we have to work with regulators and, people who run, the shops at regulators, good people. But I'm talking about in terms of the large-scale meta thing that operates here. But, regulation really, especially when it's an industry where there was no regulation, it's the government moving into the business. It's like the mob, They break a few windows, they break a few legs, they do a few other things that might be a little bit more serious than that, and they shake down the industry until they get control of it. And so they're pinching and pushing in all different areas on the industry right now. And it's like you're pushing here and it pops up there, and they push there and it pushes up there, break a leg there, they kneecap you there. Where it all shakes out, we don't know, but this is definitely a shakedown. That's what it is. So, all right. So let's go back to this piece of work here from Canada. We got to always thank Canada for its common sense, because it always seems to have great common sense.
I think it's important to give credit to the local physician who reported nationally by experts. All of that means that there is no smoking gun and no way to say for sure.
Oops, sorry, my fault. That was my bad. That was not a system crash. Okay, I need to get back to that.
Many of the chemicals used in e-cigarettes have not been tested for their health impacts. There's an unknown cause. We have seen hundreds of cases in the US and some deaths associated with e-cigarettes, but it's not known how e-cigarettes are causing these health concerns. The case definitions are still working case definitions, so they're not confirmed nationally by experts. All of that means that there is no smoking gun and no way to say for sure that any individual case of pulmonary illness is caused by vaping. That said, I want to be clear that in this situation, there was no other potential cause identified other than vaping in this high school aged youth. I'm going to turn it over to Linda to speak a bit about what we're seeing in our community right now with respect to vaping.
Thank you, Dr. Mackey. So in Ontario, the sale, supply, promotion, advertising, and use of vapor products is regulated by the Provincial Smoke-Free Ontario Act 2017. It is illegal to sell or supply a vapor product, which includes the devices, the e-substances, the pods, cartridges, coils, to any person under the age of 19. And the use of e-cigarettes is prohibited in all places where smoking tobacco is already prohibited provincially, all in an effort to protect people from exposure to vapor and to role model a vapor-free and a smoke-free lifestyle. Unfortunately, despite these important and necessary health protective measures, the use of these products is escalating, especially by high school aged youth, which is a major concern for us. Electronic nicotine delivery devices that evade smoking restrictions are being put out into the marketplace with sleek design features that are appealing to youth. They come in different shapes, sizes, colors, and flavors that allow for customization with the device configuration. And they're using technology to appeal to the young people with recharging capabilities using computers and phone chargers.
All right, Thomas is back. It's a good time to jump back in here with you, big guy. So, yeah, they're appealing to youth by allowing a device to be recharged on a computer. Who the frick do these people think they are?
Well, the thing is what makes me giggle is I'm an old fart, but I'm not so old as to remember what I was like as a teenager. And it wasn't necessarily the color of a device or the shape of a device or the fact that I could plug it into the wall. 90% of my interest was in the fact that somebody told me I couldn't have it. And you're never going to be able to approach that aspect of youth appeal, this idea that you tell them, this isn't a product for you. When we're teenagers, all we want to do is grow up. Once we're grown up, all we want to do is go back to being kids. This is a fundamental thing that goes on. Now, that's not saying that kids should be permitted to vape or that we should make it easy or that we should, accommodate it, but it is a fact of life. When you're a youngster, the fastest way to get you interested in something is to say, don't do that.
Well, and tobacco control people know that. They know that deeply. So, I mean, to me, this says that for the last year, this whole media scare that they've executed is one that they've known was going to entice kids.
Yeah.
They absolutely know that. And this isn't just me saying this. I mean, countless of the guests on our show that, are way more eminent than I am when it comes to this kind of stuff have said that, right? But what does it say? You know what? I'm done without putting this to people here. This woman right here, does she not understand how absolutely ludicrous she sounds as an adult? Like she's saying these things, thinking other adults are believing her. I'm sure she believes it. That somehow these devices are particularly have been designed to appeal because they're rechargeable on a computer.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's.
I mean,
The
that's
sad
insane.
part is there are people out there who believe her, right? This mantra it's not valid, but it does carry weight, because here you have your public health official is coming out and giving this line, and for the vast majority of Canadians who have very busy lives and very seldom read past a headline, they're going to judge their decision based on the first 30 seconds out of whatever comes out of her mouth. They won't pay attention to what comes out next week or the week after when we issue retractions and, oh, by the way, it turned out to be this, it wasn't that. Nobody's reading at that point. And it's sad. It's just sad.
Right. Well, no, I mean, yeah. Well, it's sad, but it's ideological is what it is, right? So, the concept that these products have been designed, like the sleekness of a Juul, is designed in order specifically to entice kids, it's at the point of insanity, right?
It is, and the other thing is when we get into that, this is designed to appeal to this person, and this is designed to appeal to that person. It's all nonsense. It's kind of like the flavor thing, right? Oh, flavors appeal to kids. Yeah, but my taste buds didn't go away at puberty, right? The biggest purchaser of cotton candy where I am is a 65-year-old little old lady who comes in because once her taste buds came back, cotton candy is what she used to eat at the carnival 50 years ago. She wants cotton candy. Kids quite often, they go the other way. They want bourbon, they want coffee, they want grown-up stuff, right? Because that's who they're trying to emulate. But by and large, the stats say that fruit flavors, candy flavors, all of those flavors appeal to adults in massive numbers and percentages. Tobacco doesn't even come close. But it is what it is, right? When you start injecting this emotional argument of the children, and I get it. I have 4 kids, right? I'm a dad. You want to see me fly off the handle? Do something that threatens the well-being of my children. We're wired to react that way, but when it starts to be used against you, right, where it's always save the kids, save the kids, save the kids. Okay, well, let's go into the liquor store and walk down the vodka aisle and start saving kids.
Well, so let's on the alcohol side, right? So of course you have the total complete hypocrisy, which progressives don't care about hypocrisy, by the way. That they live in the world of hypocrisy. They don't care about the fact that there's all these great flavors across the liquor aisle. So vapors have been making that argument now for years. It's just goes.
That's right. It's ineffective. It doesn't work.
Yeah, no, it's just in one ear and out the other, right? That's it. So, but what's interesting about the alcohol thing? So this mindset, so progressivism got its start 1870s, 1880s for sure. And so the temperance movement, which turned into full prohibition by, what was it, like 1918, I think it was 1919 is when prohibition, actually they finally effectively got it in across the U.S. Those are progressives. And they're the same people, the same thinking, the same puritanical thinking. by the way, people, I'm going to keep mentioning this over and over and over again so they can understand this, is that progressives are actually Christians. They're not Christian anymore, but they were Christians. So when you hear that picture in your brain and you're thinking of the temperance movement and those, what you would, in the picture in your brain is just this puritanical, right-wing, religious Christian conservative. No. They were right-wing progressive Christians, progressives. And just pick up any book and you'll figure this out, right? That's who progressives are. They just shed the Christianity part after World War II. So they are driven by what's called the social gospel. That's why they're so puritanical. And they've just got a different version of that now. It's wrapped up in this social justice kind of virtue kind of a thing that's going on. And when you're seeing the tobacco control people operating, they are 100% operating in the same historical manner as their predecessors were in the 1880s, 1890s, and early 20th century. And when it came to alcohol, one of the biggest arguments that they made that was a winner that got alcohol prohibited across the country was save the kids. That was the biggest argument they made because the drunken father would beat the mom and abandon the kids. And the kid, or spend the whole money for the paycheck every week. And that was the kid. So when you go back and you look at any of the argument for prohibition, it's all based on save the kids.
Yeah, well, when it comes to the politics aspect of it, especially when we're talking about the higher end politics of progressives versus conservatives, and I got to admit, you're way over my head there, boss. You are far more ahead on that than I am. I'm just a little guy who wants to get people to quit smoking, and that is my sole focus.
Totally. And so, but, the fact of the matter is this thing is at the level where the president, has only got that, stuff, coming into him from all sides, and he's making statements and potentially banning and stuff. Yeah. And so until we start to really figure out, until the group starts to figure out really what they're dealing with, right? See, because you're just blaming big tobacco, wanting to keep their business, or blaming big pharma hasn't really gotten anybody anywhere in this whole argument, because that's like a deflection. That's like, oh, go over here and chase. I mean, everything plays a part of it.
Well, from my point, that's a distraction. It's not even a deflection, right? It's because I get it all the time. You hear the arguments about high nicotine or this business or that business or where they're founded or who they came from. The reality is right now, none of that applies to the current fight. The current fight is something out there is making young people in North America sick. We need to identify what that is and fix it. One side is very interested in telling us that it's e-cigarettes. I don't agree with that side because everything I've read, everything I've gone looking to, tells me that it is a separate product category that's causing this. To bring up any other distraction in that particular aspect takes away vital resources and energy from dealing with the problem. Flavor bans, same thing. When we're dealing with flavor bans, we need to go back to the fact that flavors are important to adults. Flavors are technically and academically demonstrated as being vitally important. So stick to that. Sooner or later, the only way you can fight an emotional argument is to literally bury it in logic. If you come back with an emotional response, all you're going to do is wind both sides up. They're going to yell at each other. Nothing will ever get solved. The only time I have ever managed to overcome an emotional argument was literally drop logic bombs in it, drop data in it until it tears itself apart. Sooner that happens.
Right. So drop logic bombs until it tears itself apart. So that's good advice. So, but who has to do the tearing? Because it's not these people. They're possessed by ideology. So it's a matter of trying to reach the people that aren't fully sold on this crock of crap.
Yeah.
Right.
So my advice to folks is, look, we're not going to get on global, or at least I'm not. I'm never going to get on global, right? But that doesn't mean I'm totally helpless. I've got a local newspaper. I can reach 10,000 people in my town, and I can reach them fairly easily. But start with those people. The guy in the next town reaches the 10,000 in his town. Sooner or later, it gets grabbed, and it's never going to happen as fast as you want. 9 out of every 10 letters I ever write never see the light of day, but one does, and that one reaches the people I want it to reach. So screaming on Facebook doesn't always help, because most of us are isolated to our own bubbles. I could probably identify 80 to 85% of your viewers by looking at my Facebook friends list. It's that fight to try and get past it to the Regulator Watch website where other people see it. So really, it's a matter of making sure you have your facts and data, have your reports, have your quotes. When an article comes up in a newspaper and you instead of going in and fighting it outright, go in and ask a question. That really drives them nuts. If you have the data to give you the basis to ask the good questions, it's kind of like the question that was asked today in this report, or in this presser.
And
right?
let's make sure, because I know that you're busy, and I want to make sure you stay here with us for a little bit more of this. Where should I jump on this then to get us?
Go up to about the 19-minute mark.
Okay.
You should hear a fella starting to ask a question.
Okay, so we're at it. So 19 minutes.
Somewhere around there.
Okay. Tell me if we're getting close.
Remarks, Dr. Mackey said the physician reported
You're gonna want the next
concerns
question
with
after this.
Canadian Consumer Product Safety Commission.
Yep.
Is that correct?
Canadian Consumer Product Safety Act is the act that allows reporting as a form online.
And second question, is today's presser related to this morning's ministerial announcement at all?
So they're both about vaping.
Like I didn't know if, like, time-wise, it just could.
Well, I know that the province has been working on establishing a reporting system for vaping for some time.
Joe?
Quick question on the vaping. I don't know because I don't vape or smoke, but is there warnings on vapes as to, like, with tobacco we have warnings that it can cause lung cancer?
So similar to tobacco, vaping products, in terms of health warnings or packaging requirements, that is something that is governed federally. And currently the federal government is taking a look at their regulations pertaining to how vaping products should be labeled with health warnings. So that is something that we are still awaiting to see kind of what federal policy will look like on this front. In terms of what the current landscape is, tobacco products are much more heavily regulated from a labeling and packaging perspective than vapor products are currently.
Thank you.
Richard?
Hi, I'm Richard Shaw, Vapor Advocates of Canada. My question is, worldwide, there's been vaping e-liquid nicotine for approximately 10 years with 0 reported cases. Recently, 2 months I'd say, we started to see a large number of illnesses reported, typically 18 to 22 years old. And the indicators are their THC cartridges. We use the term vaping, and you've used the term e-cigarettes when it comes to these cartridges. I think they're two different things entirely. Okay? There are no reported cases that I'm aware of straight e-liquid nicotine lung issues or fatalities. I'm talking worldwide, 10 years. So I'm wondering why or how we get that terminology that's being used, because it's confusing for consumers. The last thing they want to do is get scared to go back to smoking, which we all know kills 1 in 2. So we have 0 deaths over years, 1 in 2 die from smoking, and that's where the people are going now, back to smoking, because they're scared based on what they're hearing. So I'm wondering if you could respond to that.
Yeah, so if you don't ask people, you won't get any reports of illness. And so, certainly in Canada and in other countries, there has been no system of reporting for this sort of illness. So it's no surprise that reports haven't come forward. That's why I think it's really important to credit the physician and his team in London that went above and beyond through the Consumer Safety Act in order to report what happened here, because they didn't have any other mechanism to go forward with this information. And again, that's why the move in Ontario to gather more systematic information today is a really important move, because it will be able to answer those sorts of questions in much more detail. I think it's interesting that people might want to cast the blame on THC here. THC is something that has been used for hundreds of years, and you know, some would claim there are no reported cases of illness related to THC, which again may be technically true, but inaccurately represents the risk that THC and any product that is smoked causes in terms of lung health.
One follow-up on that, please. Is quite correct. THC has been used for many years with minimal reports of issues. Maybe the opposite, in fact. But just recently, they've been taking the cannabis plant, extracting the THC into shatter form, and then using a solvent to liquidize it so you can vape it. This makes a very convenient way to consume your THC. You're not burning it, you're not rolling a joint, you've got a little cartridge. So this is a very new thing that we're seeing. And when you're not using the correct solvent, if you're using something oil-based, not water-soluble, you're going to have some lung issues, and that's, I believe, what we're seeing.
So the reality is that THC has vaped for has been vaped for as long as vaping has been vaped. Several years ago, we were hearing reports of THC being vaped here in London, and we know that London was not the first place that was tried. So I don't think the comparison is really exactly as clear.
Liquid form.
As you've stated.
Liquid form. That's not been done for years.
Just got a question from CBC. Shayna?
Melanie, actually. Should Health Canada be doing more to protect young people from vaping?
So again, this is one case. I don't think it's appropriate to totally change public policy. We are seeing vaping rates exploding in young people. It is leading to use of other tobacco products in youth. It's concerning. And so, you know, we know that the federal government is looking at their policies.
There's going to be
they have done some consultation. Our organization has been part of that. And clearly, there are further steps that need
There will
to
be a
taken to
question
address
coming
this.
up shortly from Vapor Advocates in Canada. That's the one you want.
1 second, my friend. So let's just pop over for a second here before this last one. And thank you so much, everybody. Big hand for Thomas to be coming in the middle of the day and the short notice here too as well. So this is interesting. That was a good question that he got. You could almost see his eyes light up a little bit when he realized, ooh, he was going to get thrown a question he knew was going to come. But I thought that he dodged it pretty artly.
A little bit. One is, he is correct. Cannabis has been vaped for at least as long as we've been using e-cigarettes. I haven't gone back to the first flower vaporizer to find out if it was longer than or same as.
Thomas?
Yes. I'm here.
Go ahead and continue. I think you're still going out live. I think I've just lost you.
Okay. The thing is, until fairly recently, if you were vaporizing cannabis, you were using what's called a dry herb vaporizer. So your cannabis went into an oven-like structure, which is actually temperature controlled, and the idea was you were adjusting your temperature to release either CBD or THC as you preferred for your purpose. This e-liquids for THC concentrates is a fairly relatively new thing. Prior to this, if you were dealing with cannabis oil, you were smoking it. It was going into a cigarette or a joint or on a pipe, or you were wrecking your mother's butter knives. It was a smoked product. It is only relatively recently, within the last several years, that you saw cannabis type e-liquid coming out in the market. So that's where that came from. And he kind of played that, oh, cannabis, hundreds of years.
Just 1 second, Thomas. Hold on for a sec. So we do have a crash. Okay, 1 second. So this is interesting, Thomas, because the crash actually, it's interesting. It's not on the Wirecast side. I'm just asking.
No, I think you're still live on Facebook.
Yeah, no, we're live. I don't know if I just got a message in from Bill saying that your audio started cracking and then was gone. But what's interesting though is that your levels are still happening through Wirecast.
Yeah, the next one said it was clear after that. And as for my camera, I'm working on a laptop today. I didn't pull out the expensive unit.
Okay, so I just, but that's interesting. So that, what I'm just making sure is I'm just having a look at what's going on here. Well, that seems, oh, okay.
And when we get back to the actual clip, what you're going to see coming up is Vapor Advocates of Canada. Somebody asked a question from them. I think it was Vapor Advocates of Canada. And that's where we're going to see this, well, was he using THC? Well, we're not going to tell you. Which was so I was a little bit off. It wasn't the 20-minute mark. That was Richard Shaw from Ontario there.
Right. So, there wasn't the right discussion there in terms of we're talking about the thickening agent. Like, I really wish that was the discussion there, right? Like, you know, the ingredients in e-cigarettes are different than the ingredients that are in vaping products for THC.
Yes, well, e-cigarette ingredients are actually fairly regulated. They're not heavily regulated yet. That'll be coming. But if you go into the Federal Act, there is a list of prohibited ingredients in there. Whereas with your cannabis products, those are still part of the illicit market because they haven't been legalized through the Cannabis Act yet. That's supposed to be coming in October. You can't regulate an illicit market. By nature, it cannot be controlled.
Yeah, and try banning flavors and everything else and see what kind of a black market that's going to create. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
Yeah, well, that was one of the big things about May 26th of 2018 when we became legitimate. It's actually far easier to mess with our business model now in a regulated market than it ever was as an illicit market, because in the illicit market, we would get a letter once a year that said, Health Canada says we don't think it's legal for you to sell nicotine. We'd fire a letter back quoting this one line of some obscure regulation that said, except for dosage units under 4 milligrams, and tell them to go fly a kite. That was the end of the discussion. Because they considered us illicit, they really couldn't get past that.
Right.
Once you're a regulated market, well, now they can come in and say, well, you're regulated, and we're going to tell you got to make it this way to this spec. You can't put this in it. You can't put that in it. And if you do, we can charge you for that.
So, let me just break in here for a second because I don't want to miss, bringing this up, is that one of the top questions that I had for Director General Van Loon, who's the head of Health Canada and the Tobacco Control Directorate, so the top person in charge of this issue in Canada. And when we interviewed him in Ottawa in early April of this year, one of the key things besides everything else was the fact that we just went through 2.5 years of a process, of becoming regulated, right? The market did. And, that was supposed to be the promise from the government, was a stable regulatory framework. So when regulators move into an unregulated market, and if it's done well, and we thought that this was done well in Canada, it should be a partnership where together industry works with government and stakeholders, including, the pressure groups and stuff like that have got a stake in this whole thing, in terms of developing a stable framework in which then to regulate the product. And so the laws are passed, there's all the regulatory consultation processes are going, and then the law receives royal assent. And then, all it took was a hysteria coming out of the US, the first one, epidemic, clear and present danger, And literally within 4 months of the ink's not even dry on the law, and they're already using this to crack open the regulations. And so here we are. The industry couldn't be more destabilized in Canada than it's ever been, and yet it's just been legalized. The promise was supposed to be a stable framework. And so what this tells me is that government can't keep its promise to build a stable framework, because this is a consumer product. And this is a legal consumer product. Consumer products have product scares when it comes to ingredients. So their regulatory apparatus should exist to be able to handle this without destroying the industry. But it's looking like it's going to just, if it destroys the industry, that's actually the government's fault.
I wouldn't disagree with that. I think there's some validity to that. I think a lot of our current scare, though, isn't so much the government as, like, not big governments. I tend to see most of the fear in our industry is driven more locally, like through this health unit, through the press,
Right.
and the government does what the government always does. They react to public pressure.
Yeah. But this is Health Canada, though, man. This is like what happened if what about if it was Tylenol or something that's doesn't have the sin aspect to it? Health Canada would be out there reassuring people. See, we're not getting any. We're getting sophistry. We're getting no reassurance, right?
Yeah. No, and actually that is very much true, because if you go to look at the Health Canada website, right, if you're a smoker and you really want to go straight to the source and find out whether smoking's better or not, you go to Health Canada and you type up vaping in the little search bar, because you don't know where the hell that stuff is, and up pops this page and it says you should not vape, brain damage, lung damage, blah blah blah. But up in the corner is this little hyperlink that says if you're a smoker, click here. And then you have to click there, and it takes you to the page where it says, if you're a smoker, this is better for you. I'm all for the negative warnings and stuff for youth and non-smokers. I got no problem with that. But they should be put forward on equal footing. So if we're going to go out there and promote on West Edmonton Mall's doors, like Health Canada did several months ago, where they put up these signs about vaping and lung, you had the picture of the cloudy lungs, and there was the brain image there. Okay, if you're going to do that, then at the same time, you have to have a marketing system that says, we're going to go to that 50-year-old smoker and make it incredibly clear to them that while we are telling minors and adolescents that there are risks for them, that we are telling the guy who's smoking 2 packs a day that there is a benefit for him. And where I see the fall down is in responding to the special interest groups and the Physicians for Smoke-Free Canada, or whoever else happens to go in there going vaping's bad. They neglected that part. They really focused on the youth. They focused on the youth uptake. They focused on the cool factor. They focused on all of that stuff. But they don't go out and tell smokers that the Royal College of Physicians says that this product is unlikely to exceed 5% of the harm of what you're using right now. And I think that pressure needs to be applied to Health Canada is, hey, if you want to go out and tell kids not to vape, there's nothing wrong with that. I tell kids not to vape all the time. But at the same time, you have to get that message out to the smoking population that there is an opportunity here for you. Otherwise, you will never see a public health benefit. You will always see a public health negative, because nobody advertises Juul like Campaign for Tobacco-Free Kids.
Thomas,
Yeah.
I lost you, and I've just put a question back out here to see. This is all good stuff here that's happening. It's identifying at least one issue. One sec.
Yep.
When I switched cameras, I lost my feed for you, but I'm hoping, can anybody out there, because you guys remember, this is crash testing on the RegWatch suite. Quick question for a moment there, was Thomas gone? So just asking about that. And then we're going to go back and play this. You can hear me, Thomas?
And I'm watching the live feed off to my right.
Yeah, I can't hear you.
You can't hear me? Propylene glycol in my microphone.
Thomas?
Hello.
Okay, I can hear you now.
I'm here.
Okay. All right, so, it's a good thing I always keep like extra. I got pretty much I got backup pieces of gear here for almost everything. It seems like maybe that this USB interface is causing a problem. So, all right, so let's play the next bit. So you were saying that the next question maybe is
it's coming up here. It's going to be Vapor Advocates of Canada. You can pretty much just let the video play out to the end now. I think there's only a couple of minutes. So
yeah, there's only 3 minutes left. Your mic will still be hot, my friend, but
Okay.
just like it was before. All right. And okay.
So we know that flavored e-juice and flavored tobacco in the past are attractive.
I don't
to
think
young
we have
people,
any
and something
audio
we should
there,
be
Brent.
looked at from
At least I'm not picking it up.
Okay, we'll take Taylor.
You can't hear it?
Okay,
No.
Taylor Letton from Vapor.
But I'm going through your Skype interface. I could hear it before, but I can't hear it now.
Okay, so just everybody just bear with us. I'm assuming, because I'm not seeing anything here, that there's a problem. So if you weren't hearing it, that is likely, but it's just very strange that this thing would be having a problem like this. But
Okay, your viewers say they could hear the video, so you can let it play, and I'll just keep my mouth shut.
well, okay, but they said, well, just 1 second, because this is not going to take more than just one pull. Okay, so no, this is about crash testing because remember this bug that we've got is a pernicious little thing, and it's not manifesting itself in the same way every time, but it could be the fact that this USB unit is spiking the network, and then when it spikes the network, because your video is coming in over NDI from like a Skype capture computer I've got, that could be a reason why I was dropping interview audio with Shell and with Michael Siegel. What we're seeing right now is a different problem that's happening, but could be very well connected. So, okay, can you just say 1, 2, 3 for me, please there, big guy? Yeah, I don't have you, but try it again. Yes. So there we go. Okay, Thomas, you can hear me, right? Wave your hands for me. Wave your hands for me, Thomas. Okay, count to 10 for me, Thomas. Yeah, just sit. Yeah, no. Okay, so that is very good to know. That is awesome to know. I think that might be part of the problem. So I can't hear you. Okay, so we may have crashed the system. Thomas, one more time. Thomas? Okay, so here's what we're going to do, guys. I'm just going to shut down Wirecast, which means the stream's going to just stop for a second. This is all part of the plan today, so we'll be right back. Don't go anywhere. Like literally, just give me a minute. Anything going on with Wirecast that's causing this problem? It's something else. It's USB devices outside of the system spiking the network. I guarantee you. All right, so it looks like we're back up live.
Yeah, I'm moving again on your live view.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you very much, everybody, for putting up with that. But that is what we are here to be doing. And then, of course, crashing the system means exactly what we're talking about. We want to crash everything here. Okay, so let's go back to the Facebook, to this presser here, and hear some more. There's about 3 minutes left in this presser.
So we know that flavored e-juice and flavored tobacco in the past are attractive to young people. That's something that should be looked at from a policy perspective.
Okay, we'll take Taylor. I know you've been waiting.
Okay, hi, Taylor Letton from Vapor Advocates of Canada. I kind of a two-parter, one to follow up with what Richard said. The main cause of the issues that are being presented in the media from what we've seen has been vitamin E compound. And I understand that the government is currently working on a system to report vape-related illnesses. Will information be available to the public in regards to the toxicology to see whether or not these are the results of regular e-liquid as provided that contains normally propylene glycol and vegetable glycerin base, which has been proven to be safe to inhale as per Public Health England? Or will we be able to see whether or not it was a vitamin E as represented by the cases in the States, the current 6 deaths related to vaping inside the United States? Will the public be able to see and make that differential?
So, the most basic substances that are used in vaping have been tested for toxicology.
Yes.
Vaping is clearly not as impactful, puff for puff, as smoking tobacco.
Correct.
But it does cause inflammation markers in the bloodstream the exact same way that tobacco does. So the risks are there. Yes, the risk might be lower, but over time, you will see health impacts. That's all very clear. I think the toxicology is there, that the testing has been done in humans, not just in the lab, to show that vaping causes those inflammation responses that lead to all sorts of problems the way tobacco does. Thanks.
We'll take one more question from the media.
And, well, in regards, sorry again, with Linda or Doc, you can answer. Well, you said that the usage is skyrocketing. Do you expect to see then, if nothing changes, more cases like this one?
Well, what happens today with the provincial government establishing a reporting system, this will really pull the covers back, and we will be able to see in a much more detailed way what is happening with vaping and the illnesses that we know it is already causing in the community.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. We appreciate you coming out today, and wish you a great rest of the afternoon.
Quick question, Doctor, can you just say your name, because I need it for Toronto?
Yeah, it's Dr. Chris Mackey.
And spell the last name?
It's going to be the end.
M-A-C-K-I-E.
Yeah.
And your name is?
I'm Linda Stobo, S-T-O-B-O.
Thank you very much, appreciate that, guys.
Thank you all very much.
Now I have to go find that specific quote where he said, no, we're not going to talk about it, because I got very vehement at that moment.
Yeah.
So I'm going to buzz through it real quick, and I'll give you a timestamp right away.
Okay, so you do that. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go back over to the computer here, and I know that he mentioned a couple of times that the fact that teen use in Canada has exploded. And I saw in our chat here a couple of people go, exploded? What the heck are you talking about? So I'm curious about that myself, because I don't know. I think that if you follow David Hammond, his work from the BMJ study, I think he might come to that conclusion. But look, I've got to see if I've got this stuff at hand. You know, we cover so much stuff that just have things completely at hand for me is not as easy as possible. So people are right now getting a view into my RegWatch file structure. Research academia, it's not going to be that. Oh, maybe stats can. Yes, it is. How's that? I found it right like that. Okay, so this is current smoker from stats can numbers. So, well, what's interesting here is that the good doctor just said that we know that there's an explosion of vaping use amongst teens, and then he said that, and we know that they are migrating from using vaping products to smoking, and well, that is definitely a lie. And I'm going to call it for what it is. It is. I mean, you know, they say things that are just unsupportable. So this is Statistics Canada, current smoker daily by age group. This was the recent release in June of this year. And if you take a look at smoking stats amongst youth aged 12 to 17, it went from 1.1 percent in 2017 to 0.9. So smoking went down, not up. And the David Hammond research, I think the number was 40% increase, like insane. And the media still runs with that. And this good doctor is talking about how, well, we just know that all of this explosion of e-cigarette use amongst young people, it's exploded. We know that. And we know that that's turning into young people using cigarettes, except for Stats Can will show you a much different story. In fact, this number right here, 0.9, the E means use with caution, which means that statistically it is so small, it's not even reportable. That's what that means. So sure, I mean, yes, there definitely is still, a percentage of 18 to 34, but that's not teens. That's adults. So, they keep sneaking it up. Youth, up to 25. Ooh, youth use is up. What are you talking about? There is absolutely no evidence that teens are smoking more. Period. They're smoking less. Statistically, almost unmeasurable. So it's complete sophistry when a doctor like this comes out and he makes these statements saying that we know there's an explosion of vaping and we know that they're moving from vaping to smoking cigarettes. The information is right here. And then the age group here, what do we got here? Smokers by age group. So, I think these numbers might be a bit more revealing. Oh, that's right. This includes the occasional. So, yeah, so this has got the wider, the other one was daily. So this number is definitely higher in percentage, but again, from 12 to 17-year-olds between 2017 and 2018, it went down. So if they're saying that they know there's an increase, there's not an increase, there's a decrease. And in fact, actually, that's the way the numbers have been going in Canada for quite some time, and people in tobacco control know that. Well, what they're doing is they're spinning this narrative in order to do what they're doing. So those are the Stats Can numbers. I don't have readily at hand the e-cigarette numbers, so they're not close, but that's okay. So how are you doing there, Thomas?
We're going to be looking for about the 13-minute mark in that presser there. You're going to see the question where it's specifically asked to cannabis.
Okay.
And then you'll probably want about the next 2 minutes after that. So somewhere between, start at about 13, run to about 50.
And just for everybody, again, to remind them what they're listening for.
This is going to be the portion where the health unit is asked if this is specifically cannabis related. And they're going to say that they're not going to speak to that at this time. And then when they're pressed a little bit further, you're going to hear, if you keep playing the video, you will hear the doctor in charge say that he's aware of what the product was specifically that they're talking about, and whether this patient actually used cannabis or not, but that he is not going to discuss that.
Okay. All right. So I've got it queued up. Thanks again, Thomas, for doing this, and let's do it now.
This illness has been associated with actually cannabis, and at least that's the idea so far, that it's cannabis vaping, and that it's cannabis bought not at a shop but in an online way, maybe something that's less well known than a Juul, for example. Do we know yet where she got the product that she was using, and if it was cannabis or? Okay.
So thanks for the question. The question is about cannabis. We won't be commenting on that in this situation in order to protect patient confidentiality. I notice you're using a gendered pronoun. I hope that's not because we have...
That's because I just got in here and...
Okay, no problem. We're not releasing the gender at this point. And so I think... Did I miss any part of the question?
So you're not willing to say whether it's...
Keep going, it gets better.
Oh my God. So in the middle of all of that, we're not going to talk about cannabis because we're not going to talk about that. Oh, by the way, you used a gendered pronoun.
Yeah, just keep going. It gets better.
And
I was floating.
and people want to tell me that it's not progressivism. Oh, God, these people are mentally ill. Mentally ill. See, everybody needs to understand these people are mentally ill. We need to call them out. They are sick and they're in charge of our health care. They're sick.
Cannabis were
Won't be commenting on that in this situation in order to protect patient confidentiality. I notice you're using a gendered pronoun. I hope that's not because we have.
That's because I just got in here and.
Okay, no problem. We're not releasing the gender at this point. And so I think, did I miss any part of the question?
So you're not willing to say whether it's cannabis or not at this point?
So we have information about the brand used. We have information about whether or not the individual was using cannabis. The information that we have from looking across the whole spectrum of illness related to vaping is that there's no particular brand that has been implicated, and there's no particular link with cannabis or not. There are cases where cannabis is involved and cases where it hasn't been. So in order to clarify the health messaging, we're not going to be releasing the brand related information because that would imply that this is something coming from one brand, when clearly looking at the international evidence, that's not the case.
But if it is the one
saying
brand that is related to this, then wouldn't you want to protect people from that one brand in this specific case?
Absolutely, and that's why the information has been passed to the Office of the Chief Medical Officer of Health, who will be gathering systematic data about all of these cases and what brands might be implicated.
Dr. Nick Paparella from CTV.
Okay, so just hang tight for one sec here because there was a lot there. Thomas.
Yeah. To summarize it from my point of view, if we were to paraphrase that, yes, we know what this individual was using. No, because of the international implications where people are saying they don't know what's going on, we're not going to tell you what he was using. Yet, yes, it's very important that we know what he was using that made him sick. That's what I got out of that whole thing.
And if there happens to be even one young person that's out there in our region that is continuing to use that brand, we're not going to warn that person.
That's exactly what happened. Was the doctor said we know what this sick individual was using and we know what brand it was. And then he specifically said he would not mention that brand. So how do you warn people if you know that this guy got sick and you're certain it was vaping and you know what brand of product he was using or if it was cannabis or not? Don't you think the public health is served by announcing that, hey, this guy was vaping this product and he got sick? Or she, sorry, because we wouldn't want to use any gender-specific pronouns.
Yeah, these people are mentally ill, man. That's crazy. That's more important for him to bring that up than it is to answer the most important question. The most important question
Out
of the whole thing.
Whole 26 minutes, that particular minute and a half was what upset me the most. It's the idea that your public health unit will tell you, yes, we know what the individual was using. No, we won't tell you what it is.
Right. Now, that should be the whole story, right? I mean, CBC,
Absolutely.
CTV, National Post, that should be the whole story. But it might get mentioned, maybe.
I doubt it.
I doubt it. Well, I mean, this is the modus of operandi because, it'd be okay if you said, oh, well, maybe it's just, yokel Canadians. He's a yokel Canadian doctor, right? Of course he is. But that's not really the case here because that's exactly what the CDC did in the U.S. I mean, when it fully broke on August 23rd, CBS News, big, huge chyron. We had it, in our episode when we brought Dr. Ricardo Pelosa on to skewer this whole hysteria. There it is, CDC. And then it says, they don't know the brand, they don't know the substance, and they don't know the product. But yet it's e-cigarettes and a massive hysteria.
Yeah, that's pretty much how it's laying out.
Well, and that's just what this guy just said here, So I don't know really what to say here because I don't know, people have to call into radio talk shows and stuff and just
Well,
specifically
actually,
talk
there
about
was a
that.
post out saying that some folks are actually writing the Ontario College of Surgeons and Physicians, I think it is, to put in a complaint about this public health officer that would not release that information that would be beneficial to public health. And actually, that's what I was right in the middle of doing when you asked me if I wanted to come on your show.
That's right. Well, actually, that post too as well. And let's make sure we give some props actually to. I think that was Sean Rankin. Yes, it was.
Yes, it was.
And who had posted this, and a fantastic post. And for those of you on Facebook, check out this post by Sean, Sean Rankin. And it's fantastic. It's a bunch of resources in here and some really solid arguments in this case. And, everything you need, please submit a complaint to the CBC Ombudsman, to the CBSC, tell them they are making false claims. I mean, this is really false claims. I mean, it's not even false claims. It's withholding information that so you've just got this whole press release, a news presser going and everything else, so you've passed this information on to some higher muckety muck. So then we're supposed to wait now for higher muckety muck's news presser? No, this is the presser. This is where you're supposed to be saying what the substance is. Now, here's the thing, is that he doesn't want to address the cannabis issue because of some privacy concern. So my question about that back would be, well, what privacy? How old was this person, by the way? Do we know?
They mentioned it was a school age youth, like high school individual. So
right. So
if you're not releasing a name or an age date, you're not identifying the individual. So saying that your person who got ill was using X product,
right,
doesn't release any information about the person who got ill.
That's right. And what it does do is, if it is a person who's underage, it calls into a question then the manner in which they got the product. And so because we didn't hear the whole presser, and you did, I want to make sure, did they get asked or mentioned how this product was acquired? Was it purchased legally? So, for instance,
I don't think that was ever really discussed.
Well, the
only reference I had to the individual, like specifics about the individual, at the very beginning of the presser, they mentioned that it was a high school student, and that is it. So high school could be anywhere from 15 to 19 years of age. You can assume that it was somebody who was underage, but they didn't clarify that. And again, going back to what I was pointing at earlier with distractions, in this particular case, just in this case, where we are focused on illness and cause of illness, the age of the person who got ill really doesn't reflect on what our focus should be. Our focus should be on identifying what made this person ill. And if it was cannabis, then that needs to be made clear. If it was e-liquid,
Whoa. I think that falls in the wrong. No, I think you just went down the wrong track there. You just said if it was cannabis. It's not cannabis. That would be like saying, it's the nicotine. So this is part of the problem that we have here.
If it was the black market cannabis product.
Yeah, because it's a thickening agent. It's an additive. It's an additive to a cannabis product, and it's the additive that is actually killing or doing all the harm.
No,
so
you're correct. That was a mistake on my part. The focus should be on the fact that it was black market, because even if it was just the additive that we're currently talking about or something else, the reality is in a black market, you don't know what is in your product.
Right.
But we do need to identify what made this young person sick. That's the focus of it, right? We don't want other people to get sick.
Yeah, and we know based on the good reporting out of Leafly and stuff like that. And then we did just see an arrest in Wisconsin.
In Wisconsin, yeah.
Yeah, that's right. And so, I mean, this guy in Wisconsin, it's alleged that he, turned out several 100,000 of these vape pens that apparently contained some of the, problematic, thickening agents. And then, so there's got to be, 500,000 or something like that of these devices that have been out there.
Well, I can't remember what the number was in the apartment building, but it was astounding. It was like I don't know, 40,000, 60,000 loaded cartridges.
Right.
And then tens of thousands of empty cartridges waiting to have product put in them.
Right. So
and
if
that's
you
just one guy in an apartment.
Right. So what I wish he was called on. He goes, well, we know the brand. Well, wait a minute. So this is a legitimate commercial brand from a Canadian manufacturer with an identified company and legal address. And so when you use the word brand, you're then talking about a commercially legal product, or are you talking about a black market brand? I mean, these are the things that needed to be asked. So if it's a black market brand, got it. So was it dank? Right?
Yeah, exactly.
So then we know. So how else would we, this thing is just so screaming that it's a part of this whole dank, thing. The scandal is the fact that they won't actually talk about what really is causing these people to get sick. They just refuse to, and they're totally lying about where they're putting it on.
Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even know if I'd refer to it as a scandal so much as a travesty, right? It's, if you're not going to release that information, they just took a risk with everybody out there who is vaping anything, because you don't know. Were they talking about my product? Were they talking about that guy's product? And I think that might have been part of the intent when you get at it. Is it's kind of like the initial release from the CDC: don't vape, right? Something is making these people sick, so stop everything. That's like saying we had a drinking and driving accident on the highway last night.
Right.
Don't drive.
Well, Thomas, look, I got to thank you for doing this on such short notice today, for obviously such a huge important story, and then for going through on our crash testing here. It was a lot of fun. Everybody, RegWatch can't, there's only so far we can go in terms of advocating action, right? Because we are a news organization. We do cover this issue fairly. I mean, my live streams, I spin a little bit more out of control than I would when I'm doing, one of our regular interviews. Quite frankly, man, it's just like, so I think somehow trying to find a way to crack through just regular people is the key thing. We're going to have to find some ways to do that. And I mean, Regulator Watch, hopefully, you know what? Here's what we're likely going to do. I'm going to probably put a fundraiser up for the whole truth thing that we've been talking about. So this would be definitive 6 to 7 minute pieces that have shelf life, so they could stand for 2 years. The idea with these pieces, there'd be a news series, but what it would be doing is producing definitive content on all of the top issues around vaping. So, when we handle the teen vaping epidemic, so-called epidemic, we handle that over multiple episodes with multiple different guests and stuff like that. So what we'll do is we'll go back into our archive, and we'll pull out all the great, interviews from Dr. Brad Rodu and Dr. Ray Niera and so forth, and, Dr. Mark Tyndall, and even, bits and pieces that we have that are addressing the issue from the Director General of Health Canada and so forth, and really put together, a proper 6 to 7 minutes of what happened with this teen vaping epidemic and where does it really stand. And so it's an actual piece that can stand on its own and be used and passed around, and it's a as proper piece of news information that's on that issue. And we do the same thing across the board. Is vaping a teen gateway, right? So we'll handle the gateway issue. And that kind of thing. So that's what we're looking at in kind of like a whole truth campaign, and we'll wrap that up in some branding and stuff like that that'll allow our viewers to be able to then send that out and use that as a tool to pass information on, which is what we do. We put information together, we find the truth, package it, and put it out there. So I think it's about time that we start to really look at going, because all of our, Thomas, all of our viewers are mature viewers. Oh, Thomas is gone. All of our mature viewers are mature viewers in terms of vaping. So when we cover a story, we're in there on the nitty-gritty details and the longer interviews and the in-depth stuff, and all that stuff is extremely important, and we're going to keep doing that. That's The nitty-gritty, deep stuff is really extremely important. But it's not so helpful for the person who doesn't know much about vaping or may be poisoned by the misinformation that's impacting the public debate right now. So, so that's where these whole truth pieces come through. And so we basically, we'll address the issues that are out there. So, I mean, clearly this isn't propaganda. They make propaganda. We make fact-based evidence reporting. That's the key thing. So if you do get a chance, please go to support.regulatorwatch.com. You can give us a hand there. There might be something specific out on the whole truth coming soon. And Thomas is handling some clients and he's making money. So wave goodbye, everybody, to Thomas. I want to thank you guys very much for coming and sticking with another crazy episode of RegWatch. Cheers.